Well, good afternoon and good evening, everyone. I'm so glad to have this time with you to have a chat about agile ways of managing ideas. My name is Tennille Hoppo. I'm a product marketing manager with Easy Agile. Our purpose is to help teams be agile. We make apps for Jira that help people do that. I'm dialing in this morning from a city just south of Sydney in Australia, so that explains the accent. It's early Friday morning, so let me be the first to wish you a very happy Friday, even if you're not quite there yet. And thank you so much for sharing some time with me today. So let's get started. The story that I'd like to share with you today centres on our Inception weeks at Easy Agile and how the ideas that are generated from those weeks have been used to help our teams here at Easy Agile, but also to help our users be agile. Inception Week is our internal hackathon at Easy Agile. So for 1 week each quarter, we put aside our business as usual and we form cross-functional teams around a new idea. So something that excites us. It's an opportunity to experiment with new systems or techniques, new platforms and tools, something that we think will benefit us as a team, but also benefit our business and our users. Inception Week can be a little bit messy. Some would argue that it really should be messy, definitely not polished. It's about articulating fresh ideas. It's a short spike into something that we're a bit excited about. And Inception Weeks should also be quite aspirational. That our guiding light for Inception Weeks is to aim for that feeling of how did we possibly live without this? So, and Inception Week has delivered some great learnings for us as well. We've had an opportunity to spike into some new technologies. We've been looking into AI a little bit recently. We've explored lots of new tools that help us understand our customers and help us develop and deliver better. And we've had fun. We have lots of opportunity to collaborate and work with people in the business that we just wouldn't normally have a chance to work with. So that really helps to create those deeper relationships across the whole business. And Inception Week has sparked some brilliant developments for us as well, some things that we're really proud of. Easy Agile Personas is an app that's available on Atlassian Marketplace that helps our users focus developing for their user personas. And that was started as an Inception Week project. Easy Agile Jira Hero is a Forge app that gamifies Jira. It won 3rd place for us in the IT category in the Atlassian Codegeist competition in 2021. The Easy Agile podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts via our website and Spotify and YouTube. That was created as an Inception Week project, and that's John Kern. They're one of the co-authors of the Agile Manifesto that spoke to one of our team very recently. So feel free to look that one up. It's a really informative chat. And our Sandbox demonstration. Our Sandbox website is a website that we make available to anyone. We have full working demonstrations of all of our apps where people can jump in and try our apps without the need for an Atlassian login. No need to install anything or start an evaluation. So people who are interested in understanding how our apps work and would like to try them out for themselves can jump onto the Sandbox and try everything without the need without any overhead, no need to install anything. So those are some great Inception Week projects, some really good outcomes, but they aren't my favourites. I have 2 more that I'd like to share with you. But first, I need to give you a little bit of background on something else. So Easy Agile User Story Maps was our first app on Atlassian Marketplace. It became available in 2016. It's designed to support the practice of user story mapping. And story mapping is about keeping your user at the heart of your development decisions. And I don't know if many of you have done that story mapping process. It's traditionally done with cards and sticky notes on a wall, which unfortunately, cards fall off and things can get out of place. So the idea behind user story maps is to digitize that process, bring it directly into Jira so there's no need to transcribe work. All of that work is already there waiting for you. But one of the big advantages of a story mapping process is that it creates this story map and this visual picture that gives you the context for understanding where work fits within a broader picture. It's particularly useful for those cross-functional teams when they're focused on one particular piece of work to look at the story map and understand how their focus ladders up to a bigger picture. And it's quite different to the view that you get on a flat Jira backlog. So it wasn't long after user story maps became available that we started to see reviews where people would tell us how useful this format was for managing their backlog and understanding that context. And then we started to hear from users. We saw reviews from users who were saying how great it was for planning their sprints on the story map. And so being the agile team that we are, we started building out that functionality that helps our users break their user stories down into manageable pieces, create new Jira issues right from the story map, to help them maintain their backlog and then organise their work into sprints and versions. And then one inception week, a team formed around a new idea that they thought was the best way to help an agile team improve. And you know how I mentioned earlier that there were 2 more Inception Week projects that I'd like to share with you? Well, this is the first one of those. Enter team retrospectives. Because what better way to help a team be agile and focus on continuous improvement than by regularly taking that time to share their learnings, their lessons, wins with a team retrospective. So what you're seeing on the screen there is truly Inception work. It's very much in the spirit of Inception Week. It was quick, it was messy. There were lots of hacks and workarounds. It was not exactly something that we'd ship to production by the time we got around to that Friday afternoon demo, but it was never supposed to be. What this did deliver, though, was a proof of concept, a working proof of concept that got us all very excited about the extra value that we could deliver to our users by integrating a team retrospective board alongside the team story map. It also delivered some really terrible acting in that demo, which I watched the other day when I was grabbing this screenshot for you, but my team would never talk to me again if I shared that, so I'll move on. So fast forward a few months, and when our leadership team met to discuss the product strategy, when they were focused on team rhythm, or focused on user story maps, they knew 3 things. They knew that our North Star is to help teams be agile. That's always the case. They knew that user story maps had outgrown its name. It had outgrown its original purpose, and users were already using it for way more than just user story mapping. They also knew that we had the groundwork to support team retrospectives based on that Inception Week project that I shared with you just a moment ago. And so with the decision to integrate retrospective boards alongside the story map, Easy Agile Team Rhythm was born. We relaunched user story maps as Team Rhythm in July last year. And our goal for Team Rhythm is to help agile teams through as much of their release cycle as possible. We do this by helping them identify where they can provide value to their customers with a story mapping exercise. We help them manage their backlog in context, plan and schedule their work into sprints and releases, monitor their progress through the iteration. And now with the retrospective function, we help teams review how they've been working together for the purpose of doing it a little bit better next time. So let's take a look, and I'll jump into our demonstration site. Okay, so here you can see on the screen, Easy Agile Team Rhythm. We've been quite opinionated when it comes to how we've integrated retrospectives alongside the work in Jira. The reason for that is that we want to help teams focus on improvement think about improvement while they're doing the work. So I'll give you the basics of the Team Rhythm board. You can see all of your epics lined up across the backbone here. There's a level of initiatives above, which you can switch on and off. And lined up below are the stories, tasks, and bugs that align with each of those epics. This is a Scrum board, so we have swim lanes set in sprints, and at the end of each swim lane, you can see a retrospective option here. And if I expand that menu, you can see that you have an option to add a retrospective item right from here, or to jump through to the retrospective board. If I was to right-click on one of the issues, the menu that pops up includes an option to add a retrospective item here as well. So the reason we've taken this asynchronous approach to providing feedback or providing retrospective items is so that we can capture that feedback as it actually occurs. I'm sure we've had great ideas. I hope it's not just me, but I'm sure we've had great ideas as we're working along, something that we're really keen to raise at the next retrospective. But by the time we're busy and by the time that next retro rolls around, that idea is completely gone. I really hope that's not just me. But by integrating retrospective feedback along with the work. So when we're in here updating tasks or moving things around and updating status, we can add that retrospective feedback right here, and it doesn't get lost, and it's there waiting for us when we get to that next retrospective meeting. So I'll jump through to the retro board. Our retrospective board in Team Rhythm is a hub for collecting and collating ideas for improvement. So we're working with a Scrum board, and you can see that we have each of us a menu with our sprints here. So we automatically create a retrospective board for each of our Scrum boards. Kanban teams have the option to create a retrospective as needed. It is based on a start, stop, continue model by default, but each of the headings and descriptions at the top of all of these columns are editable. So it can very easily be edited to suit any retrospective style. And so teams can make a decision about what works best for them. You can add a fifth column, which provides an additional opportunity. Different retrospective styles might need that extra space, but you could also use this as an icebreaker, something similar. Ask your team to nominate an emoji that describes the last sprint for them. You can also use the mood survey to get a bit of an indication from the team, a quick indication from the team, how they felt about the last sprint. So I mentioned earlier that we're agile developers, and we're continuing to work on the retrospective function in Easy Agile Team Rhythm. Our next release will include some changes to the header here, which includes a timer so that teams can time box certain things. You might like to give your team an extra 5 minutes for adding additional feedback right at the beginning of the meeting, or an extra few minutes to add additional comments, to upvote, and make any other comments that they'd like with the feedback that's already there on the board. You can also see here that we have categories. Clicking through to here, you can change the categories or add additionals, or just type in a new category. And you can use these categories to filter what you see on the board too. So if there was one, if you'd like to manage your retrospective by filtering based on, not collaboration because we're not talking about that today, but filter based on the tags that have been applied to each of the feedback, you can structure your retrospective that way. Now, these are all the basics for managing a retrospective. It's a little, and you can totally agree with me here, but it's a little grey, it's a little Jira grey, a little not necessarily visually interesting. So to address that, let's cast our minds back to Inception Week, and I'm going to get to my personal favourite Inception Week project, because this delivered proof of concept for retrospective templates, which was successful. So that was prioritised for development, and I can demo that to you today. So you may have noticed the retrospective bling button right at the top of the screen here. If I click there, the first option there is to select a template. So the reason that we decided to focus on delivering templates for retrospectives, not necessarily because our basic screen isn't very pretty, and the new templates do help with that, but retrospectives are a fantastic way to get a team working better together as a team and delivering for their users. But if retrospectives aren't respected as a process, they start to lose value. They can become a bit of a box ticking exercise. So just because you're performing an agile ceremony doesn't mean that you're getting value from it. When a team has done the same retro style, say if they've done a start, stop, continue retro for the last few months and nothing is changing, they're having the same discussions every week, there's no improvement in that. And the purpose of a retrospective is to find those opportunities for improvement. So when there's no improvement being made, a team can very easily become fatigued, disengaged, and bored. It's easy to become jaded, I think, as part of a team if you can't see anything changing or improving. So there's two ways to combat this. The first is to mix things up a little bit, and the second is to incorporate some accountability. I'll show you how we support both of those things. And first we'll look at how we mix things up and keep retros fresh. And so to avoid having those same discussions time after time, changing the format can do wonders. And it's really quite amazing. It's quite interesting how you can get different results just by framing things slightly differently. So I'll apply our Get Rhythm template. It's based on the 4 L's style of retrospective, and it's a bit of a tongue twister. It's the loved, learned, loathed, and longed for retrospective. So I'll apply this template. And you can see now that we do actually have a little bit of colour Oops, I've got my screen a bit small there. So we have some colour, a bit of visual interest, which is a bit more exciting than the grey that is by default in Jira. But you can also see that the headings and the descriptions of each of our columns have changed at the top here. So that provides us with a slightly different way to look at things. So we're now talking about our new loop. So what would make a team a hit? And instead of saying, well, what went wrong? Let's maybe look at where did things get out of key? So, and where could we find that improvement next time? What are the new beats that will get us working together as a team in tune? A few puns there, but it's a little bit of fun. So that is how framing things slightly differently might allow us to look at a situation slightly differently and help us come up with new ideas. There are the 3 template options available currently. We have another one almost ready for release, and we have committed to continue creating new retro templates, new retrospective templates with different themes going forward. So the second thing that you can do to ensure that your team retrospectives are worth the time that you're dedicating to them is to incorporate some accountability. And we help you do that with this last column here over on the right, which is the action items column. So that action items column can be switched on or off, but we recommend that it stays on because that's when you can turn your team feedback and ideas for improvement into tangible actions that can actually help make things better. So when you click to create a new action item here, you can see that you can type in your action item, but beneath there, you can create a link to Jira issue. So assuming that the team has met, we've decided that the last round of testing, the last release was problematic. Our test scripts aren't up to scratch. So we need to update our test scripts. Oops. By selecting this option to create a link to Jira issue, I can choose which kind of Jira issue I'd like to create. I'm going to leave this one as a task, and I'll create this issue. And when that's saved, you can see that we have a new issue key here, and I can click there and raise the dialog box or raise the issue view. And this saves directly into Jira. So from this point, I can add any components, I can add an additional description, but the most important thing for me right at this point is to assign some accountability. So Jake, our developer, if I can find him on the screen. Jake, our developer, has volunteered for this one. So I'm going to assign this task to him. And now we have a Jira issue created from an action item that we can then go ahead when it comes to our next sprint and schedule that work directly into a sprint. So what I'll do from here is copy our issue key. So now that we have an idea that's saved into Jira so that, that great idea is not left out at the end of a retrospective meeting. It's not lost at the end of the retrospective meeting. So when it comes time to reviewing our backlog or time to planning that next sprint, we can jump into here. I can search for that issue and I can drag that issue directly into that sprint or leave it in sprint 1 because that's when the work might take place. And so then the cycle can start again. And so hopefully by the time we come around to our next team retrospective meeting, the rest of the team are giving thanks to Jake, our developer, because testing was so much smoother. Now that the test scripts were updated, we were able to get that process done more quickly, and we were able to get the value that we were delivering in our latest release out to our users more quickly so they can see the value of the things that we've been working on for them. And that's what we're talking about when we say at Easy Agile that we want to help teams be agile. Agile isn't about sort of wringing every last bit of work out of a team. That just leads to burnout. So it certainly isn't about wasting time in unproductive meetings either, especially meetings that don't have an outcome. So with Team Rhythm, we've sought to provide that framework and functionality that can help an agile team improve. We want to help and support teams think about how they're working and think about how they're working together. Working as a team or working life isn't always sunshine and roses, but sharing those problems and those issues together as a team with psychological safety and working together to figure out how to address those problems and those roadblocks and then taking action, that is what leads to things getting better. Just as importantly, recognising and celebrating the things that have been working and celebrating our wins. That leads to a shared understanding of how things could improve and provides opportunities to apply those learnings more broadly. And if a team continues to focus on those incremental improvements, they'll start working better together, they'll feel happier, more productive in their role, and they probably will be delivering better. And that, in my opinion, 100% fits the Inception Week concept of how did we possibly live without this? We use this retrospective functionality ourselves at Easy Agile, certainly with templates applied, and we've absolutely seen tens of thousands of our users doing the same each week, which is fantastic to see. So I hope I've been able to share with you some ideas that might have sparked some fresh ideas of your own. I've really just skimmed the surface when it's come to Easy Agile Team Rhythm. But if you'd like to visit the Easy Agile website, visit us at easyagile.com, where you'll find product demonstration videos and links to the Sandbox demonstration website for all of our apps. So you can try and understand all of the apps that we have available for Jira yourself. It was great to be with you all here today. I think that's the end of my time, and we have a few minutes for questions. So.
Easy Agile Team Rhythm supports your team's agile practices, helping you work better together in Atlassian's Jira. The highly visual story map format makes it easy to run agile practices, like user story mapping, backlog refinement, and sprint or version planning. We value shared learning, which is why we support regular team retrospectives. So you're always getting better at what you do and delivering software your customers will love.